In the last video about the spine, very briefly I mentioned the hips. I'm a little nervous for this video. The hips are so complex, so I'm going to do my best to be very efficient in my explanation of the hips. But let's start with what I mentioned in the spine video. Spine, stomach, and intestines. It's that video. So I was here, and I was talking about how the spine comes to our lower back to create a bit of an inward curve to become our hips. Now, our hips are made of a few different bones. I'm going to be up and down in this video. So, what do the spine muscles knit onto back there? Well, they knit onto something called the sacrum. And you might be familiar with the tailbone if you're not familiar with the sacrum. The sacrum is a triangle kind of bone, and then at the end is going to be what we call our tailbone, the one that we fall on and it hurts. That's our tailbone. But there's a triangle bone called the sacrum back there. And the spine muscles knit onto that. Our back muscles knit onto the crest of the hips. And those are two different bones. Okay, so you've got your sacrum bone, the triangle at the back. But then beside the sacrum bone, there are hip crest bones. You've probably felt them before, hip crest bones. And they, like the ribs, are semicircles. Okay, so we got semicircles in our ribs and we got semicircles in our hips. Okay, so these hip crest bones that are knitted onto the sacrum circle around to the front. And they're knitted on to the pubic symphysis. We call it that anyway. They're knitted onto each other. They're knitted onto each other. So I'll say that again. The sacrum, the triangle bone at the back of the hips where our spine muscles are attached. They're just below the spine. Okay? That triangle bone, there are bones on either side of that triangle bone knitted onto it, and I'm calling them the hip crest bones right now. Okay? Those are circular bones, kind of like our rib bones. Circular bones that come around to our front to become the pubic bone. The pubic bone. The pubic bone is not actually a bone. The pubic bone is actually called the pubic symphysis, and it's made up of two hip crest bones that are knitted together and actually have a bit of flex to them, particularly when we're having a child. They flex a lot. Okay, so that's our hips. So we've come around to the front and we've got two hip bones that jut out sometimes. You may feel them, you may not, but there is a hip bone there. That's our hip bone crest. Now I'm going to give you the technical word for this bone. This is the ilium, right? There's one on either side of the triangle bone, the sacrum. Okay, sacrum, ilium, pubic symphysis. Okay, now that ilium has another part of itself. So it's not just a semicircle bone. It is another bone that comes around and up. Okay, so semicircle bone at the top of the hips. But what about the bones that we sit on? What about our bones that we sit on? Some people call them the sitting bones. Those bones where if you're sitting on a hard surface for a long time and you got like right in the butt cheek, you're like, ow. It's not the tailbone. The tailbone's in the center. But on either side, you've got sitting bones. And technically, those bones are called the ischium. The ischium. And they are actually the same bone as the ilium. Those are they're all one bone. They're just shaped in kind of a complicated way to create our hips. But the complication is necessary because look at all the hip movements that occur. I'm going to stand up. Okay. Out. And in. In. Okay, what else? forward, forward. What else? Backwards, backwards. Okay? What else? Well, outward and inward. And all the different types of movements all at the same time. So not only in our hips can we go forward and backward, or side to side, and not only can we rotate, but we can do an infinite combination of those movements as we dance. And similar to our spine bones, our hips require a lot of strength as well as flexibility so that we have both strength and ability to flex. So we have grace and elegance, and we also have toughness, meaning that if we're dancing and someone comes up behind us and smacks us on the side, we don't fall over. So we can move about in very specific, graceful ways, but we can also hold our balance really well. And that really serves us when we're going up and down the stairs, or when something's coming at us and we have to sidestep really quickly. So we've got a lot of strength, but we also have a lot of agility in our hips so that we have great balance. So the hips are highly complicated, and can you imagine how many muscles of all different shapes and sizes and angles that exist around our hips? There's a lot. There's a lot. And when some muscles get too tight, meaning short and mid flexion, you're going to have a hard time being elegant, graceful, and very mobile. And eventually, as those get really tight, you're going to have trouble holding your balance. And that's just natural. So here's a secret that I learned about the hips through experience with treating patients. If you have pain in your hips, you might also have pain in your low back. If you have pain in your low back, you may not have pain in your hips, or you may. But if you've got pain in the low back or in the hips, eventually pain might travel down the leg, right? And when it does, you're really looking for a naturopath or a chiropractor or a massage therapist or somebody. Hopefully a combination of osteopath and us and everything. So when it gets to be that, we know that there's a lot of muscles involved, and it gets to be like, okay, let's just unravel this situation. There's not just probably one problem, there's probably a bunch. Let's just unravel it. Where's the problem specifically? What movements are limited? Where are you weak? Is it when you take a step downward onto a stairs? Is it when you take a step to the side? Or can you not stand on one foot anymore? Or whatever, there's lots of different things. What movement is a little bit more robotic within certain hip rotations, whereas the rest are a little bit more fluid? And that's where we investigate and unravel the problem that's causing either back pain, hip pain, or traveling pain to the foot or the leg. Now, another little secret. If you're having low back pain, I don't know about you, the patients that have come to me with low back pain, I'd say 80 to 85% of them have had problems in the back of their thighs. And not only have they had problems in the back of their thighs, but only when the back of the thigh problem gets corrected will the low back pain ease permanently. Otherwise, treatments last a few hours or maybe a couple of days. The legs got to get addressed. And that's been my personal experience with the patients that have come to me. So let's talk about the legs in the next one. This is the hips, but remember, these three things communicate very closely with one another, and they are on a team together till the end. So what really, if you're thinking back or you're thinking hips, what you should be thinking is back, hips, legs. We'll talk about legs in the next one. See you soon.